Hey, hi, how you doing? This is the Gamertron, and welcome to the Gamertron Show. I play violent video games, therefore I am a blood-craving, psychotic, murdering, rapist, evil, Nazi-worshipping devil. Nah, I'm not. That's just what idiots would have you believe. Today we are talking about violence in video games and violent video games, and how they affect people, whereas they don't affect you at all. Being a gamer, we've all heard this complaint before, whether it be from our parents, our older friends, or someone we know who just doesn't play video games. Violent video games are bad for you. And facepalm. Where do I even begin with this one? Well, let me start off by telling you the truth. Violent video games do not make you a violent person. Video games do not have the ability of mind control. They do not give you subliminal, one sec, let me look up this word. Subliminal messages. There we go, now I got it. Every person on this earth has control over their own actions. You are responsible for what you believe in and what you do. It doesn't matter what race, gender, or age you are. You are your own person. You are not defined by anything. You are not defined by a stereotype or one way of living. You are your own person with full control over your own actions. If you commit an act of heinous violence, you have no one to blame but yourself for committing that. If you are a murderer, a rapist, or some sort of fiend, video games did not make you that way. You chose to commit those heinous acts, and you are an evil son of a bitch. Now I play violent video games. The majority of games I play, about 90% of the games I play, are violent, rated M for mature, usually containing blood and gore. And if not that, copious amounts of swearing. I have played several violent video games, with all of those aspects included. I have not once killed anyone. I have not once raped anyone. I have not once tortured, beaten, attacked anyone. I have full control over my own actions, and while everyone on this planet is subject to influence of some sort, I am still my own person, with my own beliefs, with full control over my own actions, and I make my own decisions. A violent video game never, ever made me violent. Never made me want to commit heinous acts of violence. In all honesty, I am disgusted by real-world violence. I'm disgusted by actual blood and gore. Legitimate, actual, real-life blood and gore disgusts me, and I would probably vomit at the sight of it. I enjoy video game violence. I enjoy video game violence as much as I enjoy violence found in television and movies. I mean, for God's sakes, look at some of the shows that have been viewed on television. Look how violent, bloody, and gory they are. Game of Thrones, Supernatural, every single NCIS, Law and Order, television spin-off whatever that is out there. Each one of those shows and many more portray gruesome, absolutely gruesome acts of violence. Yet they're winning Emmy Awards, getting praised by critics, talked about on the news, television, pop culture, all the damn time. You don't see anyone complaining about the violence in those television shows. And movies, dear God, what about movies? All the slasher flicks and horror movies that contain copious amounts of blood and gore. What about the crime dramas and thrillers that have people being beaten, bloodied, bruised, tortured, killed, and in some cases even dismembered? Those Movies usually win Emmys, Oscars, Academy Awards. Not a hint of complaints from pop culture and the media. You want to know why video games get the shitty end of the stick? You want the honest-to-God truth? You want to know the real answer? You want to know why time and time again video games are blamed for real-world violence? It's because they're the new thing. They're the new MacGuffin, the new mule, the new scapegoat. Before, it was literature, books. And after that, it was rock and metal music. And after that, movies, believe it or not. Video games are just going through the same process. But why, Ryan? Why? Why is there a scapegoat for real-world violence? Why does the media and people in pop culture blame these harmless products and activities? The people who blame video games for real-world violence are one of two people. People with an agenda, or people who are ignorant and hypocritical. Now, what do I mean by people with an agenda? I mean people in the media and people in government. I'm talking about the old crones who know exactly how to manipulate people and get what they want. They don't want people asking questions about how they are ineffectively dealing with crime and violence. The old crones and bastards and hags in the government who all they care about is control over people. They don't want people asking why there isn't increased police force in certain areas where violence is persistent. They don't want people asking questions of why they don't take care of bullying, why bullies are not severely punished for their actions, why the government does not take action to prevent kids from being little assholes, and don't permit teachers to properly take care of the situation, with huge amounts of restrictions and red tape. They don't want people asking questions about where millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars go every year, and how that money is not spent on security, and not putting people in prison or in psychiatric wards who obviously have mental issues. The old hags and bastards in the government, all they care about is control. This is just another means of control. They don't want people asking questions about how they're not handling the violence and horrors that happen out there, so they look for a scapegoat. And voila, video games are the new big thing. They're the new type of media that has become popular in pulp culture. So they're going to do what they did to literature, heavy metal and rock music, and movies. They're going to shame it, they're going to lie about it, and they're going to blame it for their problems. However, the second type of person who blames video games for violent behavior are people who are ignorant to video games and are hypocritical. And it's not one or the other, it's both. There are a great majority of people, usually those who didn't play video games when they were younger, or were full-grown adults when video games were just coming up. Because back in the late 80s and early 90s when video games were becoming an actual thing, video games were targeted at children. Video games for the longest time were a kids-only product. However, as video games got older, and those kids got older, and those parents got older, video games did the exact same thing that people do. They matured. They evolved. They became a more complex identity. Originally, film was nothing but moving pictures. Soundless, moving pictures. Then it evolved. It evolved to have color, to tell stories, to have special effects. And video games has evolved as well. 3D textures, deep complex narratives, advanced more complex gameplay. Video games did what every other form of media does when it just gets started. It matured and evolved. However, a great many people are still living in the past. They don't see video games as a new form of entertainment and media, just like books and movies. and television. They've read books, they've watched television, they've seen movies all their life. They've gotten used to how much more violent movies, television, and books have become. They've gotten used to the violence in those things. They've been desensitized to it because it's so often. Because they've seen so many violent movies, they don't care anymore. It doesn't affect them anymore. However, in their heads, video games are still a kid's thing. They haven't seen, they don't understand that video games have evolved, move on. They've grown up. And therefore, by not keeping in touch with how video games have grown up, they haven't been desensitized to the violence. They're not used to the violence. Video games used to be a kids-only thing, and now there is a distinction. Now, there are video games meant for kids, there are video games meant for young adults, and there are video games meant for adults. We now have the ESRB rating, but so many people are ignorant to it. They complain about video game violence and how video games are corrupting our kids, when they're the ones who buy their kids violent video games because they didn't read the rating on the box. You don't want your kid playing violent video games? Then be a good parent, look up information, and learn about ESRB ratings. You don't want your kid playing a rated M for mature game until he's older? Don't get it for him, don't let him get one until he's older. And stop being hypocrites, people. Please stop being so hypocritical. If movies, television, and novels can get away with being extremely violent and gory, video games have every right they are allowed to be just as violent and gory and dark. They have every right if those other forms of entertainment and media, if those products can be incredibly dark and mature, then so can video games. This has been the Gamertron. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hit the like button if you did. Please comment in the comments below of what you think of the video and what you think of the subject I'm talking about. If you want to see more videos from me and support me, please subscribe. I'll see you all later.